Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome you to do our new podcast episode of today's Top Tech Leaders. The goal of this podcast is to share insights and knowledge of top CTOs and product leaders on their leadership and what they have learned throughout their journey. We'll cover management tips and tricks, organizational structures, tools, and best practices on how to successfully lead your product team. Our goal is to bring valuable insights to CTOs and CPOs of all seniorities. I myself am Mark Clemens. I'm the founder of Code Control 9am. And for today's podcast, I'm very thrilled to have Dan Kreibich as our guest. Welcome, Dan.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Dan is the founder and CPO at Squake, a startup focused on decarbonizing travel and mobility. So he will tell us a bit more about that later. Before we get started, perhaps a few words about yourself, where you're from, what you're working on at the moment.
Hi everyone. My name is Dan. I'm the CPO and co-founder at Squake, as you already mentioned. And we are on a very straightforward mission. We try to help companies to achieve their climate targets, and we do so quite successfully. So we work with enterprises and startups like Lufthansa, HRS, Home2Go, or startups like Navid or Flyla, and help them basically to really understand their carbon emissions and act upon them. We ourselves headquartered in Berlin, 25 people sitting close to Rosenthaler Platz, and this is basically what I'm working on right now. If it's more about my career, that began also in the travel tech space, but I guess that's for a little bit later, right?
Yeah, perfect. Perhaps we can right away jump into that and then back to Squake afterwards, what you do in detail. Perhaps before you give us an idea on how you ended up doing Squake, how would you describe your career in 3 words?
I guess it would be something like 3 words, never getting boring. So, always quite eventful. And I guess as a product manager or founder itself, I think everyone can relate to that. No day is basically like the other. And also, I would say it was quite fast paced until now. And I have to give you some insights on that.
Really nice. Well, then let's look a bit into your career, right? How did you end up where you ended up? So you're in travel, you're in decarbonization. How did you end up there?
Yeah, so my career pretty much began straight from the start in the travel tech space. I worked very initially for a company called Flightride. Flightride is a legal tech company, bootstrapped also from here, Berlin or Potsdam at that time. And here I helped building up a new feature basically for the company. We worked very closely with the founding team and the tech department. So I guess that was the first move into product and tech overall. And then later on, I switched basically sides. So from Flightride, a company that is basically suing airlines, I switched rather on to the airline side, but not really at the airline itself, more at an incubator. So I worked for a few years for the Lufthansa Innovation Hub, and started here several ventures, basically leading the product and tech side mainly. And that was really the time where I, understood more about the travel tech space. Travel tech is a very complex field, also covered with a lot of legacy software and all of that. And by working on very different ventures, I got a feel for this entire space. And then back in 2019, I had kind of a lucky shot. I started a venture that is called Compensate. And Compensate was at that time the first CO2 offsetting compensation platform that allowed customers or passengers to fly with sustainable aviation fuels. So basically carbon neutral kerosene. And that was overnight success. So took off pretty quickly. The entire Lufthansa group was using it as a compensation platform. And then a little bit later, COVID hit. So the entire world slowed down, especially in travel, right? And that made us rethink a few things. So Compensate was at that time the foundation of what we do now at Squake. We realized that there are way more companies than just the aviation world itself that, is craving for, carbon solutions. And that was when Squake was born, which is now addressing a way bigger market, namely the entire travel and logistics space.
Cool. Before we go more in detail into Squake, has it been always clear that you end up in product, or your whole life was product driven? Because it seems like you came a bit more from a business development perspective or business side.
Yeah, I guess as with most product managers, very much in the beginning, there's not this super clear path, right? So I basically started studying business because I didn't know what else to do. I felt always interested, but also started studying architecture actually at the same time.
Cool.
Decided then for business. Very quickly noticed, informatics isn't as boring as I always thought, and took it as a minor. And then I further specialized down the line. Still not clear that I would end up in product. I was just looking for exciting companies that I could work in and where I could really do something kind of with my own hands. And I feel that, product is very much this thing where you can build things, you have very quick feedback loops and so on. Which I always felt was exciting. And I guess the way how I ended up in product, it was actually right from the beginning, right? But was that I took over tasks that the usual business guys wouldn't really do. So that were like things like, I don't know, designing a mock-up or, checking out SQL and pulling some data that others couldn't do at the time. And that brought me more into this specialized direction, which more and more pushed me then towards, just building the product from scratch because, I could do everything myself, which I feel in the end is very important as a product manager. I don't know if that's still the most up-to-date idea of what a product manager should be able to do, but at that time was it definitely to be acquainted with design, business, and informatics. Or tech, and I feel like I was always quite interested and passionate about these topics. And then also, I believe like simply learning these things very early helps you, right? So, okay, you don't know how design works. There are the best courses on, I don't know, Udemy, etc., that you can use and that make you basically 90% of a designer. Which I did quite frequently in the beginning, and I'm still doing.
Interesting. And then after all of that, you decided for Squake out of Compensate. So Compensate started with, you said, carbon neutral fuel. Was that? It was probably already a compensation for the fuel emissions. That means that you were probably calculating how much emission each passenger has, and then you could compensate for that. Or how would it work? And what is the difference to Squake these days?
Yeah, so was quite an interesting phase, right? So 2019, Greta Thunberg all over the media and the airlines under quite some pressure, which is still there today, but at that time it was, let's say, rather a new thing, right? And a new thing that the attention is, really placed on airlines. I took that as an opportunity. I thought, okay, sustainability is an upcoming topic. And at that time, I wasn't really sure actually what airlines could do to, decarbonize it themselves, right? So electric flying is still years away, at least on long distances, etc., etc. And then I basically made some research within the company, what could be done. And I found out, like for the first time at all, that there was sustainable aviation fuels. Maybe nowadays that is quite a known thing, right? I believe Virgin Atlantic did their first flight just a few days ago based on 100% of SAF, which is quite a cool thing. But, 4 years ago, it wasn't that popular. And we literally just thought, okay, hey, this is a really cool thing. We'll need to see that. How can we offer that? And the problem here was that it was super expensive. So we needed to kind of find a solution on how they would purchase sustainable aviation fuels. And we came up with quite some innovative thing. It was a slider, so you could choose between, reforestation projects and sustainable aviation fuel, and basically the price would change the more you pull it towards the sustainable aviation fuel option, but it would have a way better impact. And this element really helped to promote this idea. And it's
So
now
that is
basically
during the checkout. During the checkout for the end customer.
Yeah, at that time it was through a link out, but you will still see this feature at many companies. So I'm always saying I should have made a patent on this because everyone copied that. But on the other hand, right, it really helps the airline world to sell SAF, and so I guess it's a good thing that it's distributed. But your question was actually how all of that works. Yeah. So first of all, the good thing in aviation is CO2 emissions are calculated pretty much in a standard way. So there are attributes that are easily observable, number of passengers, booking classes, etc. So that was then very much a compensate start where we took a methodology. There are several methodologies. We took one of them, defined CO2 values, and then based on the CO2 value, we basically calculate the price of how much it would cost to compensate those emissions or reduce with sustainable aviation fuels. So this is the very beginning. And what we did at that time was having that with a linked out solution. So a white labeled website, when someone would go through the Lufthansa booking flow, they would be linked out. They had to pull their credit card again, enter the passenger details, pure pain in the ass, right? And so conversion rates were rather low at that time. Still, high volumes running through it. So still also some compensations amounts or impact that was interesting, but we speak here rather about every 500 customer doing a compensation. Nowadays it's way different, by the way. And
I click it very often, I have to admit.
Yeah, and
I really like it.
When we speak about Lufthansa, we are still integrated. So you see things like green fares. So there are fares, the name I don't know, but there are fares that include 20% sustainable aviation fuels, and we can speak about that later. It's super cool. But the thing here is we noticed a few things. So first of all, they're not just flights, right? So you need also to calculate CO2 emissions for hotels, still quite tricky, or for car rides, or in the logistics space for shipments in air, road, sea, etc. And basically, this was the very first thing that we picked up at Squake. So we built an API. So very tech-heavy product, and I think that's a nice connection to down the line in this talk here, which is hard to sell in the beginning, especially when the market is uneducated, right? But what we did is we built an API that can calculate CO2 emissions for literally any mode of transportation or travel activity, and then also to compensate those emissions. And where we are very strong in that is that we are a totally neutral party, okay? So the methodologies are all official frameworks that are certified. All of our carbon projects are either very innovative, tech-driven, sustainable aviation fuels, direct air capture, these things. You can flexibly choose what you want to take.
So it's not only travel, it's in the end logistics as well. I can imagine that H&M or Zalando could embed in the checkout you guys, and then the customer could eventually compensate for the cost.
Yeah. So our customers are quite diverse. So there are B2B2B setups and B2B2C setups. So also kind of the Champions League of selling things, right? So a very hard market, but interesting market. And as you say, right, some integrated into the booking flows, some really embed our compensations and reductions into their base products. So everything what you do through a company, there will be the compensation costs covered by the company.
Cool.
So sorry, just to mention one thing, and as you say, okay, it's D2C. For example, DB Schenker would also be a customer. Speaking about the Zalandos and so on, I don't know if they use Schenker as well, but they could use, for example, sustainable fuel options for their deliveries.
And there would be a payment split to you, or it would be always going through the company, so it's flexible.
Um, Well, we have different ways of how we work, but the important thing is that we take care of the carbon compensation.
Okay.
So we need also to control the money flows usually, so that we can prove the money that was, taken from the customer also ends up in the project,
Yeah. Okay.
and the exact CO2 amount is being compensated. And for that, we are also certified by TÜV Nord, so that really external parties prove that we are also not doing criminal stuff.
Yeah, super cool. Now we spoke a bit about it before in the briefing, and I think as amazing as your product is, and like I think if you as an end user, yes, you can click and then you compensate for the CO2 of whatever you buy. It's quite amazing, but I think from the sales perspective and from the product development perspective, it's a different story. You mentioned you have huge companies, you have smaller companies, you have things that are integrated in checkouts, others that might be, I don't know, in an ERP system, or I don't know where integrated. And you don't have one story that you sell, right? Or it's hard to sell the story. How does that work?
You're addressing a very prominent point in our company, right? So the question is a little bit how we sell certain things. So we have proven very early on that there is a demand for what we do, right? So our first customers, also if it was friends of the house, included Lufthansa, Miles and More, and these companies. So the big ones were already like quite impressed with that, and that led very quickly to other big corporates
Being
buying
interested in
from us.
general.
Yeah, and I think maybe apart from the sales or how we do sales and how we sell our product, really, I think it's also interesting to see the topic from a how do we develop a product perspective. And here, what I mean is when you work with these huge enterprises, and I believe every investor and so on would say enterprises, it's taking a long time, long lead times, then small pilots in the beginning, and then they have like the power that they can change basically whatever they want later down the line. But the very good thing is, first of all, if you are integrated, you start like covering huge volumes here in terms of CO2 compensation. And then really these companies help us to, build the product in the strictest ways, right? So they have these crazy requirements that none of the startups, none of the let's say tier 2 companies or so would have, the smaller companies. So what we see a big value in is, or where we see a big value in, is that these enterprises shape our product, right? So everything what now Lufthansa and HRS and Home2Go and so on have, the startups and the smaller companies can also get, right? And this is what they are very interested in, and basically that helps to do the sales. When it comes to sales, ultimately, you have something on your mind. Huh?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, I'm trying to understand how the sales process works, right? And I think this is also from the part that at Code Control, we also we provide also augmented teams with freelancers, but back in the day, we actually did project sales, so kind of agency sales. And I can imagine that your setup is fairly similar, that you need to talk to a customer, you need to understand how could we solve this? Does our solution solve it already? Is there something that they need to solve or something that we need to solve? Change the product in a way that works, because it's you cannot just go there and say, hey, by the way, I've seen that you could be in use of a carbon compensation API. And then they're like, yeah, not too sure. So how does this fallback communication work? And then you need to bring it back into product again.
Yeah, I very much like that thought, and I guess we could speak days about that, right? Yeah, that's certainly right. So very much in the beginning, I felt that we should follow a Stripe-like approach, right? So hey, let's convince the developers, and they will integrate that, just like because it's so easy. So we are a very tech first company, and well, I also believe that we have now the strongest API in the market. But the thing is, um, that doesn't necessarily sell, because the target group are the sustainability managers, the business managers, and their problems are quite different from the developers. So how to do sales is of course it very important topic for us, and also then how we approach different segments, right? So we have a very clear picture of how we serve each segment. So I cannot say too much in case competitors are listening, but we have a clear idea of what we sell to which company segment, and it involves different engagement in terms of time investments, self-serving possibilities, and so on. And maybe just to clarify this upfront, every company that wants to work with us can work with us on a non-tech level or on a fully integrated level. And I guess this is already a very important part, right? So it's easy to start. And then once you see that there is, the need for more automation and everything, companies will start automatically with that. And to say one more thing, which I feel is important, like agency sales is still, I believe, something very different from what we do at the moment, because, the industry is a different one, right? So sustainability is all over. Every company needs to do something at the moment. They don't know where to start, right? And the field is huge, right? If you just look at CSRD and these things, CO2 is just one topic of those. But the thing is, when companies come to us, they know they are working with experts, and they are outsourced, carbon/sustainability team. And that is very much what they appreciate and really helps us in our entire sales process. So what companies see in us is the expertise in the carbon markets on a tech level, and then really on what they appreciate is the flexibility ultimately that we can give them. Speaking of non-tech and tech.
Yeah, interesting, because you mentioned before a bit the Stripe approach, right? And I think is a bit what you're telling now as well. You have the API full embed yourself concept, or build yourself, and then you have the white labeled landing page checkout solution kind of approach, or a bit more off the shelf solutions. Can I imagine your product management to be similar, or your product iterations and feedback loops to be similar to a fintech in that sense, that you don't do massive iterations or massive innovations in the way that you do within the product? So like not the massive new features. It's more like understanding exactly how it works with the customer, how to embed in an easier way, or what is it that you take back from users or companies?
Yeah.
Clients.
So first of all, we as a company, we have a very, very clear goal of where we want to go. And that already helps. So every measure that we take in our company is basically put against, is confronted with our actual goals, and we will see if, that really helps us to go further into that direction. I believe as a developer or product manager, you always believe in shipping quickly, getting quickly feedback, and don't make these huge waterfall like projects. So I would say this is also considered in our product approach, right? So product and sales are super closely related. Prioritization sessions happen with the entire team. We decide together what is basically helping us most with our current targets. And then the iterations, we have a weekly sprint, so we work very, very fast. I feel that's one of our core aspects, why also customers are very happy, because before they start, everything is live. And that is a good thing. And I guess that comes really from the early days. So the team that is working on it is working already for a long time together. It's a very well-oiled machine. And if we can rely on something, it's good development processes, which is basically more than 50% of our speed.
Okay, cool. Super interesting. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm very much sold. So it sells me as well to click more often. I find it really interesting the approach that you took, and also making it so easy for companies to tackle this game, because I think, especially if you look into sustainability managers, the biggest question is, how do I get the whole organization behind this idea? And if there is a partner that makes it so easy, and that is focused on making it easy, it's a perfect fit now.
Yeah, I guess what we try is we want to be the partners that we would like to work ourselves with, right? And I guess everyone has made the experience of having a good tech provider or a bad tech provider, and yeah, that is overall pretty much appreciated. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
Cool.
our customers are quite happy, our
Cool.
partners.
Very good, very good. Is there anything that you would say in the last, and I have to ask it these days, in the last year or so has changed regarding AI within your product team or the way that you use toolings?
Yeah, there are AI tools that are being used. Of course, we have checked ourselves if we can build something around that. We have internally done a few, little hacks, seeing how we could use certain things, and we believe that there will be solutions also for us that we need to use. We use one particular software actually quite intensely. It's called Mojo AI. Mojo AI does one thing. It records your conversations that you have. I didn't bring Mojo into this call here, but I guess I can check it out later anyways, right? But on the sales side, it's super helpful. What this tool does, and I don't even have a referral bonus, maybe I should ask about that later on. It first of all transcribes your calls, which is an easy task, I would say, but then it also segments the calls into different topics, let's say. So whenever there's an objection of a customer or something that they really liked, basically we can see these sections right in the calls. We can forward those things to, let's say, the product team. So for example, someone says, hey, the API docs are amazing. It's so easy to understand. Then, just give the cheers to the tech team and they will see a small little video snippet of the person saying that. But then also on the other side, you see like in tricky conversations, all the objections that you can filter then and, use that as your feedback for product development ultimately. And making notes like next steps, organizing everything. So that's pretty cool. So I can highly recommend.
Really nice. We will definitely perfect. We will definitely put it into show notes because I think this Zoom just launched something themselves a few weeks back, but it works really badly. so I think something like that is amazing, especially in the sales to product. But I guess even within sales to sales, it's just teaching other account managers what works and what doesn't is amazing like that.
Yeah.
Great. Then we're already at the end. That leaves me with one more question: is if you have any other recommendations, books or podcasts, I don't know, the like that you would like to share with people in product.
With product or in general.
In general,
reading at the moment the CEO Within by Matt Moultrie, I guess is his name. What I really like about that book is it gives you very sharp advice, no blah blah, straight to the point on literally every situation you need as a founder or managing staff member or just to organize your daily work lives. I wish I would have read this book 10 years earlier. So big recommend. And I believe there is even a free version published by him, pretty much first link on Google. If that's his book, I don't hope to spread illegal links. I have the copy, by the way. Recommended that already quite some time.
Really nice. Then with that recommendation, well, take that, please buy it. We will also put the book into the show notes. Thank you so much, Dan. If there are any questions, I'm sure people can reach out to you on LinkedIn or the like.
Yeah,
perfect. Then thank you so much for sharing really insightful information the way that you do. Squake, really amazing company, amazing journey. Best of luck for the future as well for the company and making sure that decarbonization happens. And for the listeners, thank you so much for listening to today's Top Tech Leaders podcast. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, give us some feedback if we can improve anything. We're always excited to get feedback. So until next time, keep coding, keep leading. Thank you, Dan.
Ciao.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.